Good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Kirk Fisnick, and I am here talking to you today. This is the Sizzle Doctors Clinic call, and we do this every Tuesday, noon Eastern, 11 o'clock Central Time. That's where I'm at, right here in beautiful North Dakota, where it's starting to feel a lot more like winter. We're starting to get winter. Yeah, figures that. But yeah, so hopefully you're all healthy and making it through this pandemic okay, and not suffering from any of the COVID. Um, so um, you know, as we talk about COVID, we talk about other things that are important in health, and I think a lot of people just kind of overlook some of the things because they're so focused right now on I don't want to get sick with this Rona thing. I hear people talking about the Rona and my Sharona, right? You remember that song? Anyhow, um, so one of the things that scientists are looking at is how to lower the risk of bone fractures and we've heard of osteoporosis. Most of you have heard of osteoporosis. Osteoporosis is when you've lost enough of the bone strength, the bone has lost enough of its bone density that the bones are really weak and they fracture. So I just jotted down some notes here that I want to talk about because I like to bring numbers. Um, 1 in 5 men over the age of 50 will have a bone fracture due to osteoporosis. 1 in 5. That's 20% of you. 1 in 3 women will have a bone fracture due to osteoporosis over the age of 50. That's 33% of women over the age of 50. But what the studies are now showing is that this is starting to affect a lot of younger people. I was just reading here that the numbers under the age of 50 it's just gone up. It's like 25% of men and women between the ages of 35 and 50 will have something called osteopenia. And what osteopenia is when you're starting to see the weakening of the bone, you're starting to see that there's less bone density than normal. Osteopenia, right? So it's not quite as bad as osteoporosis, but we're starting to see that. And so when you're looking at this, you got to start looking at younger and younger ages. I was just looking here. So up until your second decade of life, your bone continues to build strength. It continues to build bone density. After that, it starts to decline, and they say by the age of 40, bone density starts to fall and continues to decline into old age. Women, it speeds up, it accelerates when they hit menopause, and that's when we start to see a lot of women starting to have more bone fractures, and they start to have that curve in their spine. As a chiropractor, I used to see that, and I'd have to talk to women about that, and so again, the early stages is called osteopenia, and really, if you could, you want to prevent that altogether, but as it develops, it's into osteoporosis, which means bones full of holes. So there's all the minerals are missing, so there's holes in it, and so you don't want to wait till it gets to that point. So, as I'm jotting down my notes here, trying to look at these things, they found that typically, a lot of people take calcium, and they're aware of calcium. Calcium has been a supplement that we've heard about. I mean, when I was in chiropractic college back in the 80s, we talked about getting, especially women, taking calcium. And I remember having some of my patients on really high doses of calcium. Um, and it turns out that the calcium, I'm going to go over some studies here with you. really isn't enough to help prevent this. And so you need some other things, some vitamin K2, some vitamin D3, um, to help with comprehensive skeletal support. And you need some other things too, magnesium and potassium and boron and things like that. Um, some people will tell me, "Oh yeah, but I can't take K2." I'm going to talk about that a little bit as well, um, because there's some interesting studies on that. But the drugs that the doctors are prescribing, the biophosphonates, and I'm not going to go over those in detail, but they have some side effects to them. They have some side effects that causes muscle and joint pain, bone pain, nausea, difficulty swallowing, even some problems with ulcers. And but they find that these drugs actually don't build bone. They actually don't build bone. They only limit the loss of bone. And so after a period of time of long-term use of these drugs, these so-called biophosphonates that they're calling bone-building drugs, your medical doctors are going to call them that, um, they're actually linked to the increased risk of hip fractures and osteonecrosis of the jaw, as well as some heart problems. So you know, the Japanese started looking at using vitamin K and vitamin K2, and they found that they can restore bone mass. They can actually rebuild bone mass. And so here's the results of that study. Um, this was a 2-year study, and they gave men and women 150 milligrams of calcium per day, which isn't a very high dose. Um, and then the other group had 150 milligrams of calcium plus 45 milligrams of MK4, which is high dose vitamin K2. The study showed that the group that took just the calcium had a 3.3% loss of bone. So they continued to lose bone even though they were on the calcium. The group that was taking the calcium plus the MK4, which is 45 milligrams of vitamin K2, there was zero bone loss. Interesting. So all they did was add vitamin K2, and they had zero bone loss. So in another study, and again this is a 2-year study, so it's interesting, over 2 years what they can do. So in this group, they gave one group calcium over the 2 years, and they found that there was a 79% loss of bone mineral density. So they were giving them calcium, 79% decrease in bone mineral density. They had another group that they added vitamin D3 along with the calcium, and when they added the vitamin D3 along with the calcium, they found a 0.38%, so 1/3 of 1% increase in bone mineral density. They had another group that they gave them calcium, vitamin K, and it was and in this group they had a 0.9%, so almost a 1% increase in bone mineral density over a 2-year period of time. So calcium plus vitamin K2, almost a 1% increase in bone density. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but if you build 1% per year, in 10 years, that's going to be a 10% increase. That's significant. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit too. But they found when they in the fourth group, when they took calcium, vitamin K, vitamin D, they increased the bone density by 1.35% in the bone mineral density. Now, right now, during this whole pandemic thing, we're really looking at how do we improve our immune system, and probably some of these other things are on the back burner. But really, there's a lot of other minerals and vitamins that we need for proper bone strength. And so I take a product right here called Sizzle Calcium K2. It uses milk calcium, which is highly assimilated in the body. It actually comes from whey, and whey, you know that from the little children's rhyme, but curds and whey, right? It's made from when they're making cheese. It's the liquid portion, but the calcium from milk is able to be used in the body quite easily, and combined with vitamin D3, vitamin K2, calcium and magnesium and potassium. That's what we have in that product. And then what I like to do is I like to promote it with taking Spectrum Max, which is a liquid mineral product. It tastes great. I take a shot of that every day. I have my mom and dad taking a shot of that every day. I mean, it's got just a massive array of minerals that your body needs. They're called trace essential minerals. Trace means that you don't need very much. Essential means that you need them. You need them. Essential means your body can't make it. You have to get it out of your diet. So trace essential minerals. I would take that along with the K2 product. I went off of this for a while just because I thought, well, my bones are plenty strong. I mean, look at the size of my bones, and so I went off of this, and I started taking it just recently again, and I noticed that a lot of my joint pain that I've been having, from my motorcycle accident that happened 13 years ago, it decreased when I started taking that. But I also take that with this product, Encompass 360. It's a multivitamin. Again, look at all the different vitamins and minerals. And so I think the combination of these is really a good way of doing it. And then with COVID, the thing about COVID is that they show that a lot of the studies that on COVID show that people who are suffering from some of the worst symptoms with COVID, they're showing that they have a low vitamin D level in their body. So I also take this vitamin D product. It's from Bronson Laboratories, and you can buy it off of Amazon. That's where I get mine. It's 10,000 units a day. But so here's kind of what I'm reading. So in your body, your bones are just like your skin and your other coverings of your body. It's constantly being broken down. So you have the part of the bone that's the osteoclasts that are tearing it down, and then you have the osteoblasts that are building it back. So you're constantly taking out the old bone, putting in new bone, and you're rebuilding your bone that way. And so you need these things, these minerals, and what vitamin K2 does is vitamin K2 activates a protein what it does is it this osteocalcin binds the calcium so that it can rebuild the bone, and it causes bone restoration. So that's what vitamin K2 does. And again, you can see when Tom put this formulation together, he included vitamin K2 in there, and but they've also found that vitamin K2 protects against calcification in your arteries and your valves, and so we see a lot of doctors that say, "Well, don't take too much vitamin K2." They have people taking very, very low doses of vitamin K2 because they were worried that it's going to cause a problems with the clotting factor in the body, because vitamin K2 is involved with clotting. And so here's what I want to read about this, is that it's interesting how vitamin K2 functions to work with normal coagulation, the blood clotting. And so once your body reaches a dose of that's activated the proteins that are involved with coagulation, no matter how much more vitamin K that you take, it won't cause hypercoagulation. It won't cause hyperclotting. That's because when your body reaches that fully saturated level of the clotting, it doesn't matter how much more vitamin K you take. So So that's why when the Japanese were understanding this, they started using 45,000 micrograms. 45,000, that's 45 milligrams. And that's when they had those results, like I was saying, uh, combined with vitamin D and calcium, they got a 1.35% increase in the rebuilding, the restoration of the bone. So that's a pretty interesting study. And again, a lot of people they take calcium, they might take vitamin K2, they might take some D3, but they don't really think about all the other factors that are involved with it. So that's why, like I said, I like to include Encompass 360 and Spectramax, because both those products add these trace essential minerals that our body needs. But again, I'm not your doctor. I can't tell you what to take. So if you're on a medication, um, like say warfarin or something like that, and that's interesting as well. But if you're on a drug like warfarin, um, you know, it's included in the risk factors for getting osteoporosis. Risk factors that besides genetics and things like that, but smoking. If you're a smoker, you have an increased risk of having bone fractures. If you drink a lot of alcohol, if your hormonal levels are messed up, if you take warfarin, and of course it doesn't go by warfarin because that makes you think of rat poison, but the doctors are decreasing the thickness of your blood by thinning it out with a rat poison, and that's how they kill the rats, is because they bleed to death internally, and that's what warfarin does. But so K2 helps clot, and so they're saying, hey, you can't take K2, blah 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 blah. Don't eat any more spinach, all those different things. But so the problem with it is, if you take warfarin and you're not taking K2, what are you going to get? Well, you're going to get osteoporosis. Cortisone, if you've had cortisone shots, if you take steroids, cortisone steroids, those things increase your risk of bone fractures. Protein pump inhibitors, those are drugs that you take for, you can get them over the counter. Proton pump inhibitors that what they do is they help with things like acid reflux and things like that. So you might want to look at this, but so it's interesting. It's interesting when I start looking at that, and so they say that a 10% drop in bone density, 10% drop in bone density, more than doubles your risk for fractures of the spine. Doubles your risk of fractures of the spine, and you don't want that. Again, when you start looking at some older women, especially older men too, and you're starting to see it in younger people too, but they get this hunched over look, and their back starts to get that curve to it. A lot of that is because they've lost that calcium, they've lost that strength of their bone. So you know, like I said, calcium, vitamin D, magnesium, vitamin K, zinc, manganese, silicon, boron, all these things. Take your boron, you moron. Um, and these things help to build bone density. And I'm a, you know, I want to live a long time. I want to be healthy, and I don't want to have to worry about having increased risk of fractures. A couple of years ago, my mom fractured her hip, and I think that's partly due to the fact that they put her on these blood thinners, this warfarin crap. I don't want to use the word that I really want to use, but this warfarin crap that they put her on. So folks, anyhow, that's just kind of quickly again, what I do. Get back to the person that got you this video. Start thinking about increasing your bone density. If you want to live a long life, you got to have a good, strong skeleton. Have a good day. Have a happy Thanksgiving. Bye-bye.